Oh, gee whiz. Well, look at me and understand that I never would have been so self-incriminating if it hadn't been for Herman's spiritual encouragement. The truth is, I'm not nearly as embarrassed about this stuff as I used to be, as I thought I would be. And that's straight from Herman. He's the one that's never once been embarrassed in his He's the one that's never once been embarrassed in his entire life. No fear. He's the one who made me realize what a waste of time it is to be afraid, to have hang-ups. I'm not completely cured yet, but I must say I have improved. It may be just a coincidence, but I lost over 10 pounds on the Herman diet. I'm not the child I used to be. I'm a hell of a lot happier these days, and it's because I'm a little smarter. My point is this: I wasn't my own best teacher. I had some help. I had one of the best role models a kid could ask for, and it turned out that he was the same age as me, almost exactly. It sounds a bit strange, but rightfully so. I'm strange. It took me almost 30 years to figure out who my most influential model was, who my most influential role model was. As you know, I had a lot of denial and resentment to deal with. It took me a long time to learn to love the guy I hated more than anyone. One important thing, though, there's still the sticky issue of Herman's little self-help advice book, which I'll explain a bit more in a minute. This is the fiasco which made me demand to see his journals in the first place. I demanded to see them because I knew he wasn't nearly as full of shit as was his cute little advice book that sold 1.5 million copies. In a way, you might even say that I'm bringing him in. Citizen's arrest for a total and complete violation of ethical standards and personal philosophy. Nothing short of a moral and intellectual crime perpetrated against the reading public. I read his journals and then demanded that he come clean. I'm bringing him in to try to right the terrible wrong he committed by publishing his little advice book that so blatantly contradicts any advice he ever gave himself, or gave me for that matter. I'm also bringing him in with the slight hope that he can prevent bullshit advice books from being the only ones allowed to get published these days. It's pretty undeniable that BS bathroom books are the only ones only ones with a chance of selling a zillion copies these days. However, if Herman has taught me anything, and whether or not he knows he taught me this, I know now that integrity, honesty, is the only thing that should be given the floor. As the saying goes, even though Herman doesn't always seem to think so, bullshit should walk at all costs. Anyway, that's the way this guy sees it. I know there are lots of people who would rather read BS, but that's them. And so, if there's really any hope for America these days, if there's any hope we can ever again get something meaningful to read and solve some of our real problems with all the best-selling lawyer couples in Range Rover books and cutesy advice books and empty of useful... Let me start over. And so if there's really any hope for America these days... Read that one more time. And so if there's really any hope for America anymore, if there's any hope we can ever again get something meaningful to read and solve some of our problems with all the best-selling lawyer couples in Range Rover books and cutesy advice books empty of useful advice, and of course all those memoirs of people who were never quite memoirable to begin with, then Herman's humble work should absolutely shine. I'm telling you, there isn't a shred of doubt in my mind that Herman's true work, all the observations and the pretty little paragraphs he put them in, should be witnessed on the biggest stage under the brightest lights. It's nothing less than a travesty that his true work had to take a backseat to his successful, unoriginal pop psychology nonsense, his advice book. There's no way around it. If you listen to Herman America, you'd think. Oh, and you might laugh a lot too, if you appreciate a dry sense of humor. At the very least, you'll get a chuckle or two. You'll probably get a good sense that he was pretty much happy just about the whole time. Let's just say he knows what he likes more than a lot of people. He knows what he likes more than a lot of people. He makes it very hard for himself not to have a good time. In fact, I don't In fact, I doubt many people have gotten more enjoyment out of life than Herman did. It just doesn't seem possible. Anyway, I think you'll see what I mean. He's an enthusiast. We've got the facts and the fictions to prove it. I'm going to tell you what I think is most important, what's most telling about him, and then I'll shut the hell up. Herman will take care of the rest. And I warn you, probably with more care than you're used to. He says some things about not having focus or direction, but I want to submit evidence of his unique expertise to refute this. Herman is an expert in simple stuff like paying attention. He's an expert in communicating, and he's an expert in taking care of things. Nobody ever told Wonder Boy that he didn't trust him. Nope. He's not that kind of guy. And if that's not enough to bring attention to him, then nobody else deserves any. The advice book's cover, which you're probably already familiar with, is a close-up shot of a tabletop on a porch. The table is covered in red and white checked cloth, and it has a bunch of items on it very neatly arranged to look haphazard, as if an active family of anywhere from 6 to 16 people had all decided this would be the most convenient place to keep little symbols of their personality and lifestyle in hopes that a still life photographer would soon be there. There's a fat white candle underneath a hurricane lamp just off the center of the table, and arranged clockwise in a well-designed elliptical arrangement are the pitcher of lemonade, the old-fashioned leather baseball mitt, the edge of a black-clothed book with a sewn-in red ribbon page marker, and the Ibble, just visible. A copy of Life magazine, a dirty trowel, a fold. Let me back up a few lines here. Pitcher of lemonade, the old-fashioned leather baseball mitt, the edge of a black book, the edge of a black cloth book with a sewn-in red ribbon page marker, and the Ibble, just visible. A copy of Life magazine, a dirty trowel, a folded crossword from Tuesday's Times, a cribbage board, a pile of color photographs from a wedding, slightly strewn so that half of the 4 pictures behind the top one are visible, bridesmaids, a backyard on a clearly hot August day, an old corncob pipe next to a few fishing lures, 1 bunch of grapes, a pair of dirty gardening gloves, and 1 half-empty glass of lemonade sitting on top of another magazine whose title is hidden by the glass, but which is graced by a smiling, middle-aged blonde lady in a clown suit on the cover. I wonder who that is. Now you probably already know how strange it is to have a charming photograph on the cover of a book of this sort. But if you've read the thing, which I'm assuming you have, in at least bits and pieces, then you probably also noted how charming the whole package is. You might even have said something along these lines to a friend. How charming! Or, what a charming book! If you look past the blurry edge of the photograph, you might even have noticed the porch swing in the back right of the porch, well past the table. You might have said something like, "Oh, that looks like our porch swing." Or maybe, "Hey, maybe we should put up a porch swing this summer." Either way, you probably thought to yourself that this book, with its charming cover and its charming, helpful inside, would be what you'd want on the table next to the iced tea or lemonade when the still life photographer came to your back porch to take a photograph for some magazine in your head called Upper Middle Class Perfection. First of all, nobody's coming to take that picture. First of all, nobody's coming to take that picture. And second, you're going to have a long talk. And second, you're going to have a talk about this smart little charming sweet pea of a book if anyone's going to find out that you have it. Now, I don't want anyone to think I'm calling them vain for liking the fact that a harmless little book like this might be seen on their coffee table if they leave it there for a few days. I don't want anyone to think I'm saying the book is worthless, or that despite the fact that it has seemed agreeable from the beginning, that it is somehow less charming than you thought it was. I'm only saying this, that the author is neither old nor charming the way the picture on the inside back cover makes him look. At the time of publication, he was barely past 19, and his name, as I told you, is Herman. It's not Henry. The book you've been reading at bedtime or on the porch swing in early evening, or on the toilet at sunrise is a sham. That is, it's a forgery of a philosophy and lifestyle that the author has never had, nor will he ever have, even when he's 84, which is the age his grandfather would be this year if he was still living. The grandfather whose warm, red-nosed and red-cheeked, smiling face is on the inside back cover. The man, who it appears is responsible for the charming book, died an angry, senile alcoholic 3 years before the real author even graduated from high school. The real author is my best friend, and if you think he's a smart, charming kid, don't be fooled. He's a charming genius. He took static, middle-class America and turned it into a private mint. He pulled a fast one with the assistance of some slick literary agent and went out and bought himself a top-of-the-line Macintosh PowerBook, a vintage Triumph motorcycle, and a top-of-the-line pair of graphite alloy snowshoes for long walks across the mesas and mountains out west. I don't know where Herman is in the moment, but I'll find him. When I've got him cornered, I'm going to punch him in the throat for being the most thoughtful prick I ever met. But more importantly, for being a hypocrite and a sellout. The book is called Laws for Good Living. Yeah, Herman's advice book. Laws for Good Living? I don't think so.